Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of FitzRupee Cast featuring Dawn of War 2 Retribution. Red-Rupee here with you, as always, calling the games for you. And welcome to the ruins of Leviathan Hive, this map blighted by the early stages of a Tyrannoformation. Anyways, we've got a great one-on-one game for you today featuring two, of course, very talented players. On the blue team, Mr. Nebukatnezzar with his Battle Mage-style Warlock, who has prowess in both a range of offensive spells and melee combat. He'll be facing off against the bulk and brute warrior style of the Ork Warboss on the red team here, manned by Mr. RiccoRus. Let's go ahead, hop right into this game. Leviathan Hive, if you're unfamiliar with the map, a pretty easy, straightforward map. Two rear rows of resources you can see there on the mini-map and a natural VP on either side of the map. And then we've got the central VP in the center up here on this cliffside, only accessible by these two ramps here on the center. And in between all of this, you have this kind of big gap of traversal terrain that tends to have a lot of the skirmishes and just kind of a big no man's land. No green cover anywhere around there. You have a little bit there by the stairs and, of course, back on either side and the choke points at either power point right here. So let's see what's coming onto the field. Nebukatnezzar bringing some Guardians onto the field after canceling Banshees. Perhaps at the mention of RiccoRus playing Warboss, he decided against some Banshees there, knowing that the Warboss kind of excels in all forms of melee combat. And RiccoRus bringing on the standard double shooter build. With Nebukatnezzar only grabbing the two Guardians, we're probably either going to see a quick Shuriken or maybe some quick Rangers. Rangers are very good at bleeding off these shooter boy squads, and this is a pretty wide open map. Not too many places to hide behind sniper fire here, and with it being so large and spread out, Rangers would probably excel, but we'll see what Mr. Nebukatnezzar goes for. Warlock being offensive, diving right in here, trying to get a decap on Rico's secondary power node. One generator going down there for Nebukatnezzar, and looks like just one going down for Mr. RiccoRus as well. Normally, Ork players, you see two generators pop up right away right there. Perhaps he's going for either an extra Slugga squad or... Actually, I'd probably say Storm Boys at this point, because he would have hesitated to build that generator if he was going double Slugga, double shoot it. So let's see what's coming onto the field. Nebukatnezzar, as these Guardians start to engage those Slugga Boys, pulling off his first Shuriken Cannon, putting that into the queue, and setting aside some resources for that. Nice looking Destructor right in the middle of all those shooter boys, but didn't quite do too much right there. Big stomp from that Warboss. Snags a second Guardian on the way out, grinds him with that chain axe, and tosses him over his shoulder. One squad of Guardians not going to be able to hold its own against that tide of Orks right there. And RiccoRus looks like he's going to take that first engagement. Nebukatnezzar did buy himself some time there to get that Shuriken onto the field, and it is going to get onto the field in time to go ahead and protect this power in case those shooter boys head straight for it. In the meantime, shooter boy is going to continue to chase that Warlock around. That might be a waste of time, and they realize it after he activates that fleet of foot. Warboss has to fall back after getting the decap on this central VP right here. Still ticking down a few points extra for Mr. RiccoRus. Nebukatnezzar bringing a second Shuriken on the field as the Storm Boys hit, and he captures his natural VP finally to even out the 1-to-1 VP cap. So these Storm Boys will do well. Nebukatnezzar probably wants to try to keep this second Shuriken hidden as well as he can, as to not apprise his opponent to the fact that he does in fact have that second suppression team up, and can hopefully trick his opponent into jumping on this first one with those Storm Boys and buy him some time to reposition and pin those down. So Rico hasn't seen it. We're going to see how this engagement plays out right here. Shooter's trying to focus on those Guardians. They probably moved in a bit too soon though, really. Probably should have opened with the Storm Boy jump, so all of these shooter boys would have been able to contribute their DPS. Oh no, the Shuriken goes down though for Nebukatnezzar. He may have gotten chain knockdown right there by some lucky streak by Mr. RiccoRus. Slugga Boy still chopping up Guardians there. Shuriken finally redesignates his target and takes those out of the battle for the time being. That's an early loss for Nebukatnezzar. Hopefully he can recover from that. In the meantime, RiccoRus, you can see, has a full power farm up there. Finally dropped his third gen and 2 generators up for Mr. Nebukatnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar not hesitating to bring that second shuriken right back onto the field. And I have to wonder if he wouldn't do better with maybe a squad of Rangers do a little more of that. His Guardians already have some battle equipment, you can see, using Fleet of Foot to try to kite around that Warboss. Riku knew that that Shuriken weapons team was going to set back up. Warboss decided to go around back, stomp on some rocks on his way down to probably this bottom VP here. So the Orcs coming back out in force, going to try to stop this capture of their secondary power node. Stormboy is going to come in and probably jump. We'll have to see what happens here. I expect to see aiming what's that go down on this Shuriken cannon, but we're going to see the Stormboy's already jumping in there. Perhaps he just assumed that Nebuchadnezzar wasn't going to purchase a second Shuriken cannon, but there it is. Grenade stops those Stormboys cold, and they have to retreat as the second Shuriken opens a volley on top of them.
We will stand against any enemy.
So Warboss is going to get harassed by some Guardians down here, while the second squad goes up and tries to get a decap. Unfortunately, they're trying to cap against two squads of Shooter Boys. They need to retreat right now. I don't know. Oh no, Nebuchadnezzar not even watching. Perhaps distracted down here with his Warboss, but that's a squad of Guardians down and now a Shuriken as well. Guardians, one more member goes down to that Warboss as he tries to get in a stomp. Guardians fall back. 2-0 cap for Nebuchadnezzar, but he's looking pretty hurt on army composition right now. Not looking too good at all for him. So we'll have to go ahead and look at the resources. We can see Nebuchadnezzar not too far off from tier 2, but RiccoRus is going to be leading off that charge. Slugger Boys here, looks like they had the remains of Hard Boys buff on them, probably facing off, I'm assuming, against that Warlock. Use the Warboss Hard Boys ability to reduce, heavily reduce the incoming melee damage there. And those two Shuriken cannons kind of just camping over here. They really need to get in position to kind of stop this Orc push. With having so little on the field, you're really going to want to be able to keep those Orcs away from your power while you head into tier 2. So it looks like RiccoRus is just going to ignore the fact that he can't have his secondary power node, assuming the Shurikens are still up there because he hasn't seen them elsewhere. That's always something I feel like you want to do, especially when you have two weapons teams. You always just, anytime you have a battle and your opponent loses sight of your setup teams, set them up somewhere else, you know, rearrange, and never let your opponent know where those are going to be on the fog board. So anyways, nice looking Destructor on those Shooter Boys, however, it wasn't enough to deter them. And now that we're hitting tier 2, RiccoRus not hesitating to get himself a battle wagon, or sorry, not a battle wagon, it's way too early for that, a war truck, and a knob on his Stormboys, which will of course allow him to stun upon their landing and giving him that heavy melee on just the knob leader, of course.
Shuriken Eldar host now wields greater weapons.
So Shuriken's set up to defend Nebuchadnezzar's natural power. Nebuchadnezzar now getting himself a squad of warpspiders. As soon as he hits tier 2, that should be pretty useful against this kind of mixed melee range army that RiccoRus has cobbled together here in his Orc forces. Guardians putting up some energy shields, definitely going to be useful against those big Shooter Boys. That's kind of the only option you have as Eldar playing Orc. You need to be using those energy shields wherever you can against these big shooters because they have just such high burst damage. They're going to pick off models before the battle even begins most of the time. So Guardians fully upgraded with their battle equipment and a Warlock as well now. And look at that perfect cover, just eating up fire. There goes a Bomber Boy blowing up, completely kills that energy shield. That's a good note to make to yourself. That can kill an energy shield. And now with that truck coming onto the field, everything really doesn't have much option but to fall back. Especially with Slugger Boys coming out against the Shuriken. It needs to retreat pretty much right now if it doesn't want to get taken out. And this is kind of a fun thing right here as the warpspiders tear into all these Shooter Boys. My favorite thing about Bomber Boys, by the way, is this splatted Orc right here. Anytime you use Bomber Boys, you'll see that splatted Orc just laying on the terrain there. That just always amuses me to see that completely 2D flattened Orc right there. Bomber Boy's going off again, and there he is, knocking over the first Shuriken cannon. Unfortunately, he didn't take advantage of that. Rico should have moved in on that Shuriken. Now it's getting set back up. Should use aiming what's that, and now he's jumping in. He knows there's a second Shuriken, but he jumped in anyways. That's going to be, oh, nice looking grenade, not quite hitting center, but doing quite a bit of damage to those Storm Boys. And they're taking lots of retreat damage as well from the warp spiders and that second shuriken. Stormboy's very powerful, but also very costly to reinforce, especially for orcs when they already bleed so much. You can see Slug is already upgraded with their knob as well.
Adding support structure.
Really, Rico probably could have had that battle, but he didn't prioritize taking the shurikens out of the fight early enough. He could have knocked those shurikens out and then obliterated this entire farm had he played that a little better, I feel. But now Nebuchadnezzar has a Bright Lance on the field ready to engage whenever that battle wagon, or sorry, I said it again, that war truck comes back onto the field. Warlock's kind of been running around on his own so far this game. Now finding himself at the wrong end of a bunch of Slugga boys and their pointy implements. Warspiders in the meantime jumping all over the place, harassing wherever they can. They don't want to get caught out here outside of cover against these shooter boys, though they need to warp right now. There they go. Warspiders very effective at shredding infantry, but they're of course very frail. You want to use them at their maximum potential. Always at least in yellow cover, but try to warp them wherever they have green cover. Of course, the Warboss been stomping around, kind of been messing up most of those options anyways. He sees that Bright Lance, but looks like he's driving the truck right up to it anyways. I'm not sure if he's going for a suicide shot here or not. There goes the Haywire Grenade, takes out the truck. Shuriken Cannon in a lot of trouble though. It needs to get out of there right now. Reckless activated. Stormboy's jumping to the rear Shuriken as well. A nice grenade going off on top of the shooter boys, but oh man! Bright Lance goes down, Shuriken goes down, 3 setup teams. Oh, that's just brutal. Brutal play by Mr. RiccoRus. And I'd venture to say that there's really not much coming back for Nebuchadnezzar right now. Only down to just 2 squads, a squad of Guardians and a squad of Warspiders against a full contingent of Orcs. Nebuchadnezzar managed to take out that war truck, which honestly is his only real positive outlook right now from that last battle after losing all 3 of his setups teams. Just missed that Autarch call-in right there. You can see the remains of most of the shooter boys. Knob is the only thing that made it out of there alive. Shooters get pushed back right now. Rico playing it safe now after obliterating those 3 squads. No need to risk anything unnecessarily. Despite all those losses, Nebuchadnezzar not doing too bad on VPs. He's down by 30 and dropping, however. He has managed to keep this secondary power node out of his opponent's hand the entire game, but not really making too much of a difference as he doesn't have his own either. Warspiders not quite capping there. There they go. But the Warboss is in pursuit. He's probably going to be able to stop the decap, but not going to be able to deter them off the field as they're just going to warp around and kite them all over the place.
Requisition point near.
And Rico now hitting tier 3 with Nebuchadnezzar way behind on that. Warboss has to retreat in the face of those Warspiders, realizing that he is not going to be able to deal with a warping squad being a singular melee unit.
Hostile orcs seek to overrun our resource point.
Wisdom is the winner.
Autarch getting a decap on that rear requisition point. That's really what you want to do with orcs, is try to keep them requisition starved as you can and just keep picking off models. Unfortunately, Rico has plenty of resource. Nebuchadnezzar pulling a second squad of Warpspiders onto the field now. Honestly, probably not a bad idea against this kind of mixed army right here. They can warp around and kite these 2 melee squads, and so long as they're used properly, they can outshoot these shooter boys as well. And with the Autarch and Warlock running around to keep at least one of those squads engaged, those Warspiders can kind of pick and choose what they want to engage and maybe buy some time while Nebuchadnezzar tries to get himself back into this game. Energy shield going up for those Guardians, buying them some times. There goes Bomber Boys again, just obliterating that energy shield and knocking all kinds of Eldar all over the place. Warspider's trying to get behind some green cover, even dropping a distort field to make sure he doesn't have to reinforce those any more than necessary. And these Warspiders are going to have to get the heck out of there. As, oh no, here comes some Storm Boys disappearing right out from under certain doom. Those Warspiders fall back and find themselves some safe positioning. Warlock with his Witchblade of Kronos giving him the Ethereal Slash ability, which is a nice AoE melee ability. Unfortunately, speaking of melee, he's in a lot of trouble right now. Might just be able to get out of there. Oh man, one more swing and he would have been down 21 HP to escape. Bomber Boy is being used repeatedly here to great effect, actually. You don't see that ability used too often, but you can see it's just devastating. And you can actually see all the Bomber Boys all around the map here that have exploded for the great cause of the Green Tide. So Autarch back here with her Executioner trying to maybe get an easy decap on this rear power. Warpspiders warping all over the place, trying to engage these orcs, but losing quite a few members here. At the threat of Ethereal Slash, both of those melee squads fall back, and the Shooter Boys do as well as the Warlock closes the gap and finishes off one last orc with a swing of that Witchblade.
Orcs are claiming a victory point.
Nebukatnezzar's been doing a great job on the backline with this Autarch, just kind of running around harassing. She did take out the power node, and now she's just working on those rear requisition points. Once again, 300 to 278. Did have the cap on this natural VP over here as well. Guardians finding themselves at the end of a chain axe and falling back from that Warboss. But unfortunately for Nebukatnezzar, he's got nothing left on his natural power. Has one gen that he's captured there from Mr. RiccoRus. And I mean, Rico knows that there's two Warpspiders on the field. I'm not sure if these knobs are the greatest choice right now, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Against Warpspiders, I mean, honestly, he could either just be kind of spamming some looted tanks here. The caveat of that, of course, is that you don't want just one vehicle against Warpspiders. You want at least a couple so that they can't disable both, and if they do, they've both teleported, both use their haywires, and they're just ready to get torn up by those Shooter Boys. But now these knobs are on the field and fully upgraded, so we'll see how RiccoRus uses them, and the only problem I'm going to see is that he now has, with these three big melee squads, those are kind of the core of his army, and Warpspiders are just going to kind of be able to evade and take advantage of that and kind of run all over the place. Warpspiders, by the way, very, very good on this map because they can kind of warp up here and not have to walk all the way around, so they can kind of jump between engagements and causing some trouble there. Nice dodge. Most of the damage kind of evaded from that Ethereal Slash, but man, that Warpspider squad and Warlock shredding into those Storm Boys, causing RiccoRus some headache. That Warlock's going to need to be very careful, taking lots of fire. Oh man, those fully upgraded Shooter Boy squads are very nasty. You can see they just about obliterated him. Warpspiders repositioning constantly though, and continuing to harass those Orc squads and cause some bleed. Nob's now trying to get the decap over here, and Nebukatnezzar now has a third Warpspider squad on the field. This might be the very definition of Eldar cheese right here. But honestly, as I was saying, I'm not sure. I know a lot of Orc players want to get these knobs right out of the gate. Perhaps Rico will be getting himself some either commandos. Honestly, with 3 Warpspider squads on the field, I don't even think a looted tanks would be a good idea, because 3 haywires might just take that out outright. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if Nebukatnezzar's watching. Oh man, XR taking a bash to the face right there. Only 2 Warpspiders are chaining. That's going to be a little costly for Nebukatnezzar. With these 3 squads of Warpspiders, he's going to have to be very aware of his bleed. And look at this Autarch just constantly running back and forth. I don't even think she's engaged anything the whole time, just constantly forcing RiccoRus to kind of back cap and keep him on his back foot here, despite losing all those early squads for Nebukatnezzar. So we're going to have to see what RiccoRus does here. Nebukatnezzar actually catching back up pretty well here if he can keep these Warpspider squads doing what they've been doing. He's been playing them pretty well so far, not losing too many models as they are very expensive. Autarch now going to have to jump the heck out of there. And there she goes, going to keep running around. There goes the fleet of foot. She's so very quick, being able to hop over cover and everything like that, in addition to her very high base speed. Warpspider's getting a quick volley in and then falling back. Picked off, actually, did they get any models there? Nope, just doing some solid damage. Oh, they did get a Slugger Boy. You can see his Orky bits hanging out right there. And there goes another Bomber Boy. This would be the perfect opportunity to drop that Ethereal Slash Warpspiders teleporting around on this side of the map. Looks like they're going to take out the Warboss. Stormboy's in a lot of trouble. They go down, and here comes a Rox. Oh man, it looks like a pretty solid hit on one of those Warpspider squads. Took out quite a few models, but did not get any sort of squad wipes right there. Unfortunately, he didn't really have anything to lock those squads down, but you can see Eldar lying all over the place on this battlefield. Even if you don't kill any squads, there's something just cathartic about dropping a Rox on a frustrating pile of opponents. But if nothing else, it forced a retreat. Here goes the Hard Boys on that Autarch. She realizes she's not going to be able to win that fight, has to fall back.
You have a command.
And nice play there. He's just going to wait until that wears off and then turn right back around and engage them. In the meantime, Knobs and Shooter Boys hanging out up top. Rico down to just his shooters. And these two melee squads after losing those Storm Boys. Autarch in a lot of trouble though. Took a little more damage than I think Nebukatnezzar was expecting. And gonna have to be very cautious around those melee squads. In the meantime, two Warpspider squads and Guardians moving up over here, while the third squad now reinforcing its lost Exarch. And instead of the Autarch in the rear, we now have a Warlock going around and doing some backcapping. 192 to 167, 2-0 against Nebukatnezzar. Nebukatnezzar doing a great job of doing that constantly incessant backcapping here, using that Eldar speed and just keeping the map control in his constant favor right now.
We must save the lost ones.
Really bringing it back after I thought, honestly, that he'd be out of the game. A looted tank coming onto the field, but man, at this point, I think that might be too little too late. Those Knobs are really going to have to get some kills in here to justify their cost. They've kind of just been running around being intimidating, not really able to engage any of these ranged squads. Look at this nice placement of the shield here. Not even going to be able to get the cap under all that fire, but definitely bought some time. Always something you can do. If you have extra energy with your Guardians, don't hesitate to drop that energy shield wherever you're intending to cap, because that can buy you the time to get the free cap in and negate all of that possible range damage.
I choose to evolve. As ever, we serve the craft world.
So one hairwire going down on that tank already.
We have it fast.
Probably going to look for those Slugger Boys to come along and fix it up a little bit. Really what I want to see at this point is Commandos come onto the field. Just such an underused unit. But with their DoW2 ability and the Burn-A-Bomb, they can either eliminate Warpspiders or at least keep them from teleporting and allow Shooter Boys to open up and just pour some heavy DPS into those downed Warpspiders. But we'll see how it goes. Autarch apparently rolled out, and here she comes back, dropping grenades on a pile of Orks, but gonna have to be jumping out of there almost immediately, because there is way too much up there right now. Activates her shield once again, but she's gonna have to retreat. Another haywire going down on that tank, whittling away with Eldar haywires right there. RiccoRus has lots of resource right now. I'm not sure why he hasn't bought back his Warboss, perhaps just assuming it's not worth the time. And look at the Warpspiders and Guardians just tearing through these Orks right now. Slug is very low. Oh, they go down. I don't know why he tried to stay on there. And now it looks like these Warpspiders are going to try to engage this tank and kill it in melee. The Exarch, of course, does have power blades, so it'll take a while, but they can do some pretty reasonable damage to that tank. 81 to 171, 3-0 for Mr. Nebukatnezzar right now. Warpspiders still trying to harangue this tank. Another squad, and there goes the final haywire. There goes the looted tank. RiccoRus didn't have sluggers to repair it anyways. And man, what a play. These Warpspiders just been constant source of headache for Mr. RiccoRus. A Bright Lance was on the field to help deal with that looted tank, but he didn't even need it. Still hanging out in Tier 2.
What do you require?
These Knobs activating Frenzy to no avail. Another Ethereal Slash, not even phasing that Warboss, however, as he just continues to sit there and cap. Warlock's going to have to fall back. 21 to 171, though. And he really needs to get some caps in here. Ricco had such a strong opening, and it would be a shame to let it go. These warpspiders have just been playing perfectly. Nebuchadnezzar really on top of his micro, keeping those warpspiders from taking too much damage. Really, that Rocks was the biggest loss to warpspiders so far this game, I guess as would be expected. I'm not sure if their frenzy's activated again. These knobs have their knob, their huge hammers, and their meaner and greener upgrades. So it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a delay of a game here, if nothing else, as Ricco pulls ahead and grabs himself another VP. As you can see, the Autarch has gone ahead and skyleaped away once again. Oh man, Destructor going off, but at the cost of the Warlock. A bit of a slip up there. And Knob's finally getting into melee, but they're already lost a member, and I actually misspoke. They didn't even get into melee. They fell back once again. A third squad of shooters on the field. Ricco just trying to spam these shooters and get them out here. I'm not sure, again, this War Truck's just not going to be able to do anything against all these Warpspiders. Warpspiders level 4, level 3, and level 2 right now. Here comes the Autarch back once again with a volley of grenades, forcing those shooter boys away. And now going to engage, I'm sure, very quickly right here. Jumping in, knocking them all over. She's not going to be able to stand up against those knobs right here, though. Does have to fall back right now. Ricco doing a good job of trying to hold on to these VPs, but with Warp Spiders and an Autarch on the field, Warlock's down at least to prevent that constant capping nuisance. But it's going to be hard to hold this kind of map control against Eldar for long.
Our triumph is nearly complete.
It is a fuselage. We have succeeded.
And Ricco hasn't even had time to recap his natural power. There goes a Haywire Grenade, stalling that War Truck while those shooter boys try to get in range to take out these Warp Spiders that have just been constantly bleeding off Orc models. Oh man, here comes another nice clash. Knobs versus the Warlock. Oh no, there goes yet another Haywire Grenade. There has to have been at least a dozen Haywires that have gone off this game. And that truck is just spiraling out of control. Finally falls down. There goes an Ethereal Slash as those three squads of shooters have no choice but to fall back right here. Warboss ready to face off against the Warlock. He really needs to keep him from capping that, because if he does, that might be all she wrote.
Tell me quickly what you wish.
Warspiders coming in to take out the Warboss, though, and he has to fall back. 85 to 16. Autarch closing in on these Slugger Boys. I'm not sure why he purchased Slugger Boys here at the end either. Perhaps, I'm not even sure really. Melee against all these Warspiders, just not a good call, and man, that's the game. RiccoRus conceded, and this about sums it up right here. Just look, Orc bits flying as the Warspiders shred into him. Autarch running around. Great second half of the game by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar lost 4 squads right before Tier 2. Lost his Bright Lance, 3 Shurikens this game, and comes back strong with just some great Warp Spider play. Some may argue that it's just cheap cheese, but honestly, Warp Spiders are glass cannons. If you use them incorrectly, you can lose them just as easily as you can win with them. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to subscribe or comment. I always appreciate it. This is Red-Rupee. I will catch you guys next time.